Hello, welcome back to everybody in the Smelly Army Private Members Club. So for this week's video, I hope you don't mind the slightly more informal setting here. Try to give you a little bit of a different feel in the stuff that I do on the Patreon group. There is less editing usually in these videos, and it's a little bit more intimate and maybe more of a glimpse of the real me than I always put on my main YouTube video. So I hope that's okay. So the subject that I wanted to deal with today is my favourite designer fragrance house. I think at the moment, this of course changes now and again, and I've just really recently decided today that if I had to kind of go with one fragrance house from the world of not high-end niche stuff, I think this would be the one. It's kind of a bit debatable, because you could argue that this is not a designer fragrance house, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. It could be seen as a niche house, or kind of hard to categorize it. It doesn't fit into the obvious categories. So it's not going to be Chanel, it's not going to be Dior. That's a lot of people's favorites. Up until now, it probably would have been one of those two. Maybe Dior, maybe Chanel is my favorite designer men's fragrance house. So there were some definite ones that were contenders, ones that definitely weren't going to be possible inclusions there. So I think that at the moment, the house that I really love the most is probably the House of Guerlain. So where shall I start? So of course, Guerlain, a French company. I think they started way back in the 19th century, and they've been going ever since. Not really a company that were famous for making clothes and then suddenly branched off into perfumes. So can we call them a designer fragrance company? I don't know. They certainly have a line of stuff that's high-end niche, the Art et Matières collection, but I'm sticking to the stuff in the designer price brackets, and some of these available for great really low prices. So I'm going to be happy to share these with you today. Apologies if it's far from comprehensive, the ones I own, and it seems to be leaning a lot more towards quite citrusy fresh ones, I'm afraid. Not in every case, but there are a few others like L'Instant de Guerlain, or the extreme version of that I really would like to add to my collection, that are more on the sweeter end of things. But let's see what the ones that I'm going to mention are, and I want to know from you guys in the Private Members Club, what is your favourite designer fragrance house and why? Which fragrances clinch it for you, or do you have one? Maybe you don't. Let's see. I like to, of course, mix and match all my fragrances up. I'm not a big devotee of any one house, but let's get stuck into some Guerlain ones without me waffling anymore. I'm going to do it in random order, I think, so I'll actually kick off with the most modern one, I think, maybe on the list. That is L'Homme Ideal Cologne, which I've often mentioned as being a very nice citrus, kind of freshy. So this one's sort of a little bit similar maybe to Dior's Dior Homme Cologne, which has a kind of lemonade type of vibe. I'm just going to try and look up the notes actually, which I should have already done for this one, and tell you those. But it opens with a blast of citrus, of course, and then there's this note of almond in here, which we also had in the original L'Homme Ideal, to which this is basically a flanker. It was a 2015 release, and it's skillfully blended really bright natural lemonade-esque citrus with the distinctive L'Homme Ideal accord of a sort of bitter almond, and it just did a marvellous job. The perfumer, of course, on this one, Thierry Vasseur, the main man, in-house guy there at Guerlain, and some people are saying 2014, some 2015 for the release date. Notes on this one, we have got orange and bergamot, as you would expect. There is also grapefruit and pink pepper in there, the almond note as I mentioned, and we've got neroli apparently, and in the base white musk and vetiver. Really beautiful citrus, modern but different to anything else out there. It doesn't smell like a stereotypical aquatic sporty fragrance, and it's just got that touch of Guerlain class. You can get this on the websites out there, sort of 20 something pounds, £27 for 100ml, and I think around the world it's often available for good discounted prices. I like the design on it. Brilliant. So Guerlain L'Homme Ideal Cologne. Let's jump around in time a little bit then. So another one that I really like that I just picked up the other day is Vetiver from Guerlain, and this is a real quintessential classic from the House of Guerlain. This one was released first, I think, in 1961, and the perfumer would have been the great man Jean-Paul Guerlain himself. And the notes on this one, I have called up the notes already for this one, so maybe I will use that website just a little bit more. I hope you don't mind that. We've got bergamot, lemon, mandarin, neroli, coriander, vetiver, cedar, tobacco, nutmeg, pepper, tonka bean, and something called capsicum, which I have to admit I'm not very familiar with. So this is a really quintessential, maybe the benchmark masculine vetiver fragrance, one that is still referred to today and often brought up by people actually when I didn't own it as one. Oh, if you like this Guerlain, you like that one, surely you should try vetiver. So eventually I did. I stumbled across this again in a charity shop the other day. I think it's a vintage bottle. It's not the same design as today. I'm not sure how vintage. It might be worth some money. It was actually £25 even in a charity shop. So maybe they knew it was something quite good. And it's just beautiful. It's got this really kind of, I call it I've got it on today. It's a creamy vetiver note for me, and an earthy, grassy vetiver. As always, vetivers tends to be grassy and earthy, kind of right in the middle. It can be a little bit more one way or the other. This one's kind of just bang in the middle of the two elements, and I find it creamy, and it's got that Guerlain magic about it as well. There's a really nice mixture of citrus and neroli in the opening, so you get that little burst of freshness, and then this kind of soapy yet complex and enigmatic kind of masculine aura that you get from this one. A real versatile scent, decent performance on my bottle so far, and it'll be a great signature scent for maybe for a more conservative minded man. And if you like the note of vetiver, you've really got to try this one. I think for me, maybe just because it was just called vetiver, I found that didn't inspire me and make me feel excited, whereas Habit Rouge or whatever they conjure up some kind of image. And when something's just called neroli or just vetiver from a company, sometimes I tend to overlook it a bit because I think, oh well, it just smells of vetiver. But it is an absolutely beautiful quintessential classic from the house of Guerlain. And again, the modern version you can pick up really cheaply at online discounters, so highly recommended. Moving on then, we'll jump around a little bit in style. So there's a couple of freshies that I nearly left out actually. These were a bit of an afterthought from the Aqua Allegoria line. If you like citrus fresh type scents, and this is great alternative to more expensive stuff like Atelier Cologne. The Guerlain Aqua Allegoria line are beautiful. One of them I think is now reissued. It was out there and then discontinued. I think it's back now. Is Nerolia Bianca. If you are into neroli scents, if you like Tom Ford's Neroli Portofino, you want something in that vein but different, it's absolutely beautiful. Superb kind of very strong orange blossom and neroli kind of mixture. The little label on here says the spirit of orange and orange blossom, but definitely a very clear and obvious neroli note for those of us who love that, and a floral kind of white floral tone. It might come off a bit feminine for some people, but if you like a really brilliant vibrant neroli and orange blossom kind of mixture with that super fresh invigorating vibe, then Nerolia Bianca is great, and I think prices on that line very reasonable indeed. Here's one more from the line, a classic that was raved about by Luca Turin in his Perfumes the Guide, and this is Pamplalune. That really is the smell of grapefruit, the spirit of grapefruit and a note of bergamot, it says this. If you want a grapefruit smell in a fragrance, really sharp and really natural smelling grapefruit, and it lasts actually really well for me. Again, superb value for money, very inexpensive. So I'm focusing on a lot of the more humble Guerlain fragrances that you can pick up for superb prices. Let me know if you've tried that one. Moving on to slightly different kind of territory now then. I've mentioned this one in videos before. Mouchoir de Michour. This was released in 1904. This is my favourite kind of Guerlain bottle design. I absolutely love. These are the B bottles with the famous Guerlain B symbol, and they're just a beautiful shape. Everything about it is superb. I did call up the notes for this one because it's quite complex. So this one, not a citrus freshie really. It was first released by Guerlain in 1904. It's an oriental fragrance, and it was Jacques Guerlain, the man behind this one. The notes are lavender, lemon, verbena, bergamot, tonka bean, patchouli, cinnamon, jasmine, neroli, rose, iris, amber, vanilla and oak moss, and it's often sort of referred to as the male counterpart to Jicky by Guerlain, which does have this slightly funky animalic undertone, which I also pick up in this. I would suggest there might be a bit of civet or something in there, as well as the listed notes. And Mouchoir de Michour, actually, I guess, is a play on words in French, but I think it translates simply to gentleman's handkerchief, so perhaps it's implying that it's what one would spray on one's handkerchief in the top pocket in the old days. It has a really nice actually citrus opening. It does have a good verbena and bergamot citrusy opening, and then there is this certain vanillic sweetness and a very powdery feel combined with a slightly animalic, maybe even leathery kind of undertone of something just a little bit dirty in there, but very fascinating, very complicated fragrance. I've heard some people, I think, compare it a bit to Creed's Bois de Portugal. There is a sort of barbershop-ish element to both those fragrances, and a sort of dignified mature gentleman vibe about this one that you really should try it. Some people find that they get sort of pissy notes. I've read people say on Fragrantica base notes. I never pick up on literally that, but I can see there is a potentially off-putting element, but it's a fascinating, complex, and to me very gentlemanly fragrance. So Mouchoir de Mouchoir, highly recommended by me, absolutely. And yeah, one of the under the radar Guerlains that not many people talk about. We're going to be looking next at I think a flanker of Habit Rouge before the real thing. Habit Rouge Sports. I mentioned this in my top sports videos. It's like Guerlain's Habit Rouge, but it's got something different and magical about it. I don't really know what it is. There's a note of bamboo in there. It's definitely citrusy, but it's very woody as well. And it's just this really zingy, fresh iteration of the original Habit Rouge. It is unfortunately now discontinued. It was a 2009 release, but I absolutely love it. Great performance. In the ballpark of the original Habit Rouge, but slightly zingier and fresher, but not in a kind of... They didn't just dial in a bit more citrus. They didn't just do it a little bit more aquatic. They put some magic in there. I don't really know how bamboo would smell. But it's a slightly different note listing. There's definitely vanilla and woods as well, as in the original Habit Rouge. Real 9 out of 10, maybe 10 out of 10 fragrance for me. So if you can pick that one up for a good price, don't miss out on Habit Rouge Sport. Soon it will be very, very hard to find, I feel. Okay, moving on then. Here is Habit Rouge, the original classic, well-known version, the Eau de Toilette. This is a modern formulation. And of course with this one, it's an oriental fragrance with a lovely citrus opening. It's a mixture of citrus, a little bit of green bitterness, and beautiful rose, a very important rose note. I think there's some jasmine too, and quite a lot of vanilla and woods in the base. Absolutely quintessentially gentlemanly, timeless, elegant stuff. A superb classic fragrance. I prefer the Eau de Toilette to the Eau de Parfum. It's a little bit fresher, and if you can pick this one up online, it's not going to cost you a lot of money. Very, very reasonably priced, and I like today's formulation. I haven't tried the vintage version, so we're very nearly finished. I've got 2 to go. One of them is Eau de Cologne Imperial. This was released way back in the 19th century. Apparently was the fragrance either made for, certainly favoured by, the wife of Napoleon III of France. I think her name was Empress Eugenie, but I could be wrong. One of the best Neroli fragrances out there again, so you'd have to take your pick between Neroli Bianca and this. This one seems to be purely Neroli and orange blossom. This one has a little bit more of a lemon pith kind of thing going on, and a little bit more muskiness in the base, and I think rosemary, some more sort of herbal notes as well. And a great, really good prices if you can find that one online. Unfortunately, I don't have a lid, but it smells great just the same. As you can see, I really go for this when it's a boiling hot day, as it is here today, actually, in England. And absolutely superb for the money. Eau de Cologne Imperial, love that old-fashioned name. Quite a few famous people apparently have worn this one, and it's a totally timeless classic fragrance. So that one, definitely check it out. A lot of people haven't tried that one who are into fragrances. Last but not least, Eau de Guerlain, 1974, another Eau de Cologne style. So I am sorry about the accent on freshness. I mean, they're really known for some of their great gourmandish fragrances as well, the House of Guerlain. But I'm going with the fresher, more sort of masculine, gentlemanly ones today. Eau de Guerlain, 1974, again, Jean-Paul Guerlain. The notes, again, it's kind of a citrus opening. It definitely has more to it than that, though. A little tiny hint more of this kind of masculine theme. So Eau de Cologne Imperial, very much a unisex fragrance. But Eau de Guerlain has a different kind of feel. So let's just see if we can find this one. So a citrus aromatic fragrance. The notes on this one, basil, bergamot, lemon, caraway, carnation, sandalwood, patchouli, lavender, jasmine, mint, bergamot, rose, amber, musk, oak moss and neroli. So a lot of different notes there. A little bit of a slightly barbershopish feel. Some people online are comparing it to Monsieur de Givenchy by Givenchy, one of my favourites. So it's got that Eau de Cologne vibe, but a little bit more leaning towards the kind of chypre fragrance. A nice green bitterness in there. A lovely one of the best lemony kind of citrus bergamot openings in the game. I absolutely adore the opening on this fragrance. And then this kind of gentlemanly woody oak moss dry down that is to die for if you're into that kind of thing. Performance okay, not amazing. Don't overlook Eau de Guerlain. Not sort of mega cheap. I think you sort of have to pay about £70-ish unless you're very lucky to get your 100ml bottle. And again, it's got the superb design. So at the moment, my favourite fragrance house designer, is it a designer house? Discuss. I think it's Guerlain. I want to know what yours is in the comments below, what you think of these fragrances, which ones you've got, and which other ones I need to try and buy. I definitely need some more Guerlains in my collection, preferably not so many fresh ones, some more sweet, vanillic and leathery ones. Of course, Derby, I want to get that one. That's on the list. Discuss. Thanks for watching. Remember, whatever you're doing in life, let's project. See you in the next video. Bye bye.